Good morning to you. Welcome to our Thursday racing today, the 8th of July. We're up the Vaal straight for all our races today. 8 races are carded. When I picked up the computer form, Neil, I thought that I was missing pages because it's featherweight. And the reason being for that is small fields. And I understand that the local Gauteng meeting on Saturday is pretty much more of the same.
Yeah, disappointing card, Nico. Very disappointing. But anyway, we'll bat on. It shouldn't take us too long to go through it. So, first races are work riders. You've got some betting there, and
I
and
will
the
put up
change.
the betting, but before we go to that, the game last night, England versus Denmark, I suppose the end result is predictable. The way they got there is debatable, but they have beaten Denmark, and I think they deserve to go into the final after how they've played now.
Yeah, I think on the balance of play, although it's a bitter pill to swallow for the Danes. I mean, that was the softest of soft penalties. I actually thought it would be overruled
Yeah, so too.
by VAR.
Yeah,
I was shocked that it wasn't, but probably on the balance of play on the night. I mean, if it was a boxing contest, Denmark were out on their feet. So, but a terrific first goal from the Danes. And I think it's probably a dream final for many. Italy, Denmark.
Okay, so that's Italy, England, you mean, Italy versus England, and that, of course, will be played on Sunday. Saturday is the third place playoff, Neil, and we'll be looking forward to seeing that as well on Saturday.
When's the final, Nico?
Sunday, I heard.
Sunday, okay.
Yeah, I heard.
I haven't looked.
Yeah, I heard it was Sunday. Okay, let's go to some betting now. We've got 8 races carded at the Vaal today. As I mentioned, all races up the straight. It's very thin in terms of the competitiveness of the racing today. But let's start off with a work riders maiden over 1,400 meters. Here you can scratch number 11 on the warpath. No tongue tie for number 8, Bloomington. And I think that's really the changes over here. Blinkers, by the way, go on number 5, Blessed World. So, Neil, it's all about the best work riders. I know that looking at the log for the work riders for the season, which ends at the end of this month, there's little to choose. In fact, both Penisile Monkawa and Tshepiso Matsuela are 9 winners for the season. So the bragging rights for who will be champion work rider may go down to this. And it's going to be tough between Mr. Livingston and Fort Commander. By the way, Tshepiso Matsuela has won 5 out of his last 6 races. He's been aboard the winner. So he's had a tremendous run of form as Tshepiso. But Mr. Livingston is the favorite at 7-10, and there has been money for it, as well as for the second favorite, Fort Commander.
Yeah, it looks like a boat race, Nico, but not only because of the riders, but because of the form. I had a slight preference for the favourite, number 10, Mr. Livingston. But of course, that's negated by that stat you just told us, where the rider of 1, Fort Commander, is just slaying all before him. So I never get overly involved in these work rider races, but it is the first leg of the bipod, so I have to, if I'm going to take a bipod. And as a result, I'm not going to be too clever. I'm just going to go 1 and 10, put both in. But I'm interested on your take on the first time, because I know you always look at the pedigrees of the likes of Will Town, who's a Willow Magic. What did you make of him?
So the mare, Lani Lady, won once over 1,300 meters. He's a half-brother to that horse, Salai. I think it's trained by Andre Nell. He's by Toreador, and he's won from 12 to 1,400 meters. So I think in terms of distance suitability, I think it's spot on here. And there has been a touch of support in from 4-1 to 33-10. Again, we know pretty much too little about him, and we'll have to gauge on his way down to the start. But it's very tough for a first-timer to come to the Vaal 1,400 straight and win. It's a specialist track. And I think he'll be up against both Mr. Livingston and Fort Commander here. So let's see how he goes by, but we can't go on any form with him. So I would put him clearly for third, but I am siding with the favorite, as you are, Mr. Livingston, here to win the first of the day. Going to move on to race 2, which is the start of the place accumulator. And this is due for 1:15 today. A maiden juvenile plate over 1,200 meters. Scratch number 2. In fact, there are 2 scratchings now. Number 2, 8's Enough, and number 6, Irish Sea, are both scratched. And here the favorite is Sicilian Tiger at 11-10 after a very good debut. Chief Rafif at 9-2, and Accelerator, who I think you liked last time out, Neil, and ran a creditable second to Silly Fella. That's at 5-1, with 7-1 and better bar those. How do you see this one working out?
Well, Accelerator is held by Sicilian Tiger on the Anytime Champ run. So I think that the betting's probably about right. Well, actually, the betting was a bit wrong, because although Sicilian Tiger was favourite, I'm not so sure the gap between them should have been 12-10 and 7-1. So I can see why they've adjusted Accelerator in a little bit, but he certainly deserves to be favoured over Accelerator. But I don't think the race ends there, Nico. I think Chief Rafif is a bit of a runner for sure. I think he's a son of Rafif and should run well. But I'm very interested in the first timer, number 5, Ice and Fire, from the Matchard Yard for the Vensels. For once, it's not an act of war, but it's a What a Winter out of a Jetmaster mare. And I think that's the family. I think that Sean Tarry, Chris Van Niekerk had that family. And Muslim rides.
They've got Shango, Neil, which won the Constellation July.
Yes.
Half brother to Shango. Shango's by Captain of All. This is by What a Winter. But Shango's well performed.
Yes.
This horse.
Yeah, I think Shango has been a bit disappointing, really, because he won the Dingons, didn't he?
Correct. Yeah.
You know, but I mean, when I say he's disappointing, that's because our expectations were high of him. But he's, as you say, a very capable horse. So I think number 5, Ice and Fire, I'd certainly have a look at his betting patterns and perhaps more importantly, what he looks like on the way to the start.
Well, look, he's by the, at the moment, What a Winter leads, give me the green light in terms of the 2-year-old stats. There's little to choose between them, but he's been a phenomenal size, What a Winter. This was prior to, I think they changed the name. He was actually called Smoke'em, and they changed it to Ice and Fire. I looked that up last night, but he's for very lucky owners, Roy Wenzel and Rose Waterman Wenzel. So, yeah, I think we've got to look at Ice and Fire very closely. He's the best of the first timers and most distance suited. But I think looking at it, I am in the camp of Sicilian Tiger because I like that first run. Remember, he ran behind Anytime Champ, who Joey Soma mentioned in his interview to me as one of the, the better 2-year-olds he's ever trained. And to finish 3 1/4 lengths behind that, I'd be taking that. Look, Chief Rafif now, I think, has got a chance. His best run, funny enough, was up the straight. The rest of the runs have been around the turn. His best run was the first run, which was up the straight. So I think he could be a danger, but I'm still siding with the favourite Sicilian Tiger to take race number 2.
So in the PA, Nico, would you bank a Sicilian Tiger? Would you banker him in the bipod as well?
Yeah, the bipod I may go 1 in 10. I'd definitely bank him in the PA. Hey? Yeah. I definitely bank him in the PA. I think he's the horse to beat over there. By the way, just on number 12, Zuzan, he's looking for ground. The mare Zafira won 4 times, 2,200 to 2,450. So you'd have to think that Zuzan would be looking for a lot further than this, and he's down at the bottom there at 16-1. Okay, on to the third race, Neil, where there's a lot of first timers. So I'll go first over here. The favourite is the horse that's had 3 runs, Quest from Afar, back to a 6 furlong after running a mile last time out, 17-10. Meteorix at 4-1, and then Nina's Star is at 7-1. I'll just pick on the best of the first timers in terms of the pedigrees. Number 2, Apache Fighter, who's down at 25-1. The mare Class of her own, 1 over 1,200 meters. All her wins, 4 of them were over 1,200 meters. She's by the Apache. Jeff Sester takes 1.5 kilos off her back. She's by the Apache. No great shakes over there, but I think on the dam side, she certainly is bred to sprint. Number 4, Code Zero. She's at 14-1. She's a daughter of Master My Fate, who I like a lot as a sire. The mare Sunset Sails won only once over 1,200 meters, but interestingly, this horse is the half sister to Seattle Sunset, who I think did most of her racing down at Flamingo Park for Cliffy Miller and won 9 times. As also related to a horse called Sammy Joe, who won 6 times. And she's quite well bred, as this horse Code Zero, number 4. And then who else was pretty well bred? Number 7, Nina Star. There's speed in the pedigree there. I can see why there's been money for her, because there's definitely a lot of speed on the dam side. And the final one was number 11, Puff of Smoke. She's by Captain of All. It seems to be a sire strike, Neil, when I looked up the pedigree. Half brother to a horse called Diesel and Dust, who we don't know much about, but actually won the second leg of the Triple Crown in Zimbabwe over 2,000 meters. He's by Futura. So I think Puff of Smoke could be anything here. He's in the betting at 7.5 to 1. But I think, Neil, with all the form behind it, number 12, Quest from Afar. I mean, running third to Shield of Roses. Second in that race was Desert Miracle. So Quest from Afar ran a length behind Desert Miracle at levels. Is there a Desert Miracle here?
No. There's a lot of desert, and you're going to have a miracle, I think, to beat Quest from Afar. I'm surprised it's 17 to 10, Nico. I thought it'd be 7 to 10.
Yeah, I think it's because of the majority of the race of first timers. So they think there might be a first timer lurking with intent here. But I'm like you. I think back to a 6 furlong. It's her race to lose.
Yeah, I mean, she's drawn 12, and last time she tried a mile, she was drawn 7 out of 7, and now she's got a good draw. I mean, surely she'll win here. Surely.
Yeah. So if you take it on her face value that she's a length inferior to Desert Miracle, who's won now a grade 2 and been touted as a grade 1 horse, and quite correctly so. Unless there's something really special over the first timers, I don't expect this to lose, Neil.
No, me neither. Banker, Quest from Afar.
I'm in the same camp. I'm going to banker that. Okay. So let's move on to the 4th race now, which is the start of the first jackpot today. It's a maiden over 1,000 meters. And pretty little in the terms of changes over here. You've got Brief Crusade at 16 to 10. Maraca Ginger, you've been for before at 3 to 1. Joint second favorite with Night King. And then Lulu's Boy, who's a jockey strike now. Gavin Larena rides at 4 to 1. 10 to 1 bar. How do you see the 4th working out?
I thought most of the action was on the second page of the computer form, oddly enough. I respect Brief Crusade, the favorite, and I respect number 1, Night King. I think you've got to, but I was looking for value on the second page, as I mentioned. I thought that some of these horses could improve. I mean, Gone in Time ran 24 lengths back last time, but I think you can excuse that. He completely compounded.
Yeah.
And he's got Lyle Hewitson on board, and he did run behind Mufasa and shows pace. So I'm not expecting him to compound this time. So I thought he was a silly price at 25 to 1. And then even the Binder horses I found, because Bard of Avon obviously has won really nicely. I'm talking about number 7 now, Samuel Salt. Has got no weight on his back and has got blinkers on. And he followed that up running behind William Robertson, who's also much touted. But I wondered if Calvin Habib didn't have the choice of rides, in which case you've got to say the 8 horse, who's that Star, who was backed on debut and now has blinkers, might improve, particularly being a son of Vaal. But the problem with that is there's been 0 winners from 14 race forms. So I didn't like the race, Nico. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. Maybe 1 and 4, 1, 4 and 6 will be enough. But in the back of my mind, I was just a little bit wary of this race. How did you see it?
Yeah, I'm also not comfortable with it, Neil. I've got an uneasy feeling about it. My top choice was the favorite Brief Crusade at 16 to 10. Dennis Schwartz is back aboard it, and I think he's ridden this horse Lulu's Boy a few times, so he would know what Lulu's Boy is like. But Gavin Larena, I respect Gavin's choice. Well, the fact that Gavin's on for Courbisru on the 2. So I'm uneasy about it. Like you, I looked at Samuel Salt. I like those runs to Bard of Avon and William Robertson. The fact of the matter is that Corlett Jacobs takes the 4 off and they've got blinkers on. And he's a son of Vercingetorix. So I think for me, of the 2, I'm more with Samuel Salt than I am with the stable companion, Who's That Star. And one has doubled the price. But but I am going to go in with Brief Crusade as my top choice over here. I respect Lulu's Boy. Night King, I was terribly disappointed with last time, Neil. I mean, it was too bad to be true. I mean, it didn't raise a gallop. And I'm worried about those respiratory noises, Neil, which it's showing. And I'm not 100% sure that he hasn't got issues. So I'd rather back a horse that I know doesn't have respiratory problems. So I'm going to be on the side of Brief Crusade. Lulu's Boy, I give a chance to. And like you, I'm putting this horse Samuel Salt into the reckoning too, down at the bottom there. But I don't like the race at all. The first timer, by the way, Neil, is a son of Captain of All. I haven't found too much about him. Mfanelo Zuma rides and carries only 56 kilos. He's an unraced 3-year-old. And I'd like to see him go down to the start. So I'm not going to really comment too much on him because I can't find much in the pedigree there.
Yeah, I see he's trained by Corey Lindsay. Just as well he's not trained by the Fortune Yard, because I think that was the guy's name, Captain Montaigne. So they had a brief chat with at the on in July.
Yeah. Was that his name, Captain Montaigne?
No, I don't think so, but he might well have been. He was certainly a captain.
Well, it seems to be the in thing going to jail these days. I mean, every second person's off.
Oh, that's breaking news this morning on on the country.
Well, I was actually up very late last night, Neil, so I did see it break last night, and I started sending all the news out. But I think that was the inevitable had to happen. And
will you be listening to Carl Niehaus later?
I'd rather reserve comment what I think about that man. Show. I have strong thoughts, but I may get in trouble if I spend any time on him here. Okay, so without further ado, I don't want to waste time on.
This is a channel where we deal with people who punt, and I think we'll just leave the rhymes out. We'll just stick with punt.
Yeah. I have, I agree with that. Okay, let's move on to race 5. It's the dailytrack.com maiden. It's over 1,000 meters. And the field's cut up with 2 scratchings. Number 2, An Old Sweet Song, and number 7, Vuitton, who's interestingly named. She's out of Paris Fashion, so I like the name of Vuitton, number 7, but she's out. So there's only 6 runners here. I'm going to move on to the betting. This one goes off at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And What a Miracle is short price at 6 to 10. Now, we went for her last time, Neil. I was actually shocked that she was in the region of 9 to 2 when the betting opened, but she went 12 to 1 and she ran a cracker. She's out of a very, very speedy family. And she's got Hewitson aboard today. She had Luke Ferraris on last time out, but she's the favorite. The first time in number 5, Moon Shining Through, is at 18 to 10. And then we got Princess Queen at 5 to 1. But I'm expecting, for my money, for What a Miracle to take this one.
Yes, we did like her last time. I was astonished that she drifted and she nearly won. And we did quite well with her. I took a few places and so forth. It was one of those races where actually are the best races, the 8 and 9 horse fields, because you still get 3 places. And really, you've only got to beat a couple of slow coaches home. But What a Miracle nearly won. I think it's a massive runner. I do respect the other 2, Nico, particularly Princess Queen, because it's a massive jockey strike.
Yeah,
and it's got no real form at all. But I'm sure Smunger is going to be doing his utmost to get Princess Queen competitive. And he generally rides well for this yard. It's not necessarily shown in these stats, but whenever he gets on board for Grant Maroon, he rides pretty well. So I do respect it. How I will play is like this for the pick 6. I will put in 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So in other words, if 8 What a Miracle wins, then I'll treble up. But I've got to respect the Rafif Moonshine Through, and I'm definitely not going to leave Smunger out after he's taking over from the previous 4 riders.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Sheep could be the biggest danger. I didn't find too much on the first time here, Moonshining Through. She is a daughter of Rafif, who's got great season stats this year, but I didn't find too much about her. And again, the specimen will have to be looked at over there to see if there's any money. 18 to 10 is her price at the moment. but I do prefer What a Miracle with the 2 runs under the belt. So I'm going quite strongly for that one. Okay, on to the 6th race. This is an MR80 handicap, a bit of semblance of form over here, but a small field, 1,000 meters. This horse, Country Squire, has been an absolute revelation. He's a Duke of Marmalade Entire, and he's won so well. Whenever he wins his races, he's 7 or 8 to 1, and he blitzes and wins easily. So he's now a 4-time winner. All his 4 wins have been really comfortable, but he's really up in the weights this time out, and he's got Lyle Hewitson on for the very first time. He's at 13 to 10, just ahead of the money horse, Elysian Chief, who's been backed in from 3 to 1 to 14 to 10. So there's little to choose between them currently. Godswood is 5 to 1. And Successful Secret at 8 to 1 with Look to the Sky at 9 to 1. So my question to you is, Country Squire has to give Elysian Chief just 3.5 kilos. Is that enough for the 2-year-old to beat Country Squire?
I think it's going to be very competitive. Country Squire, I agree, is actually very useful. For me, the danger is actually the one, Godswood. Now, Godswood has got a lot of weight, but Nkoli takes off 2.5. So there's, even on the last run, he was beaten 6.25 lengths by Country Squire, but he stays 60 kilograms and Country Squire is up 6.5. So just on handicapping, that brings them close together. And I don't think it was Godswood's best performance anyway. I think he's better than that. He hung in a little bit and he had a few issues. But I think he's going to be competitive because it's a 1,000-meter dash, and I think he might be on his bike early. His recent starts, he hasn't shown that early toe. Maybe he can do so today. So I thought Godswood would be competitive. But to come back to your question, Nick, I think that it brings the 2-year-old right in, especially with the money coming for it. So as much as I like Country Squire and he's done a good job, I'm going to try and beat him today.
Yeah.
With a few, actually. I'm going to pop in a couple.
Yeah, I think I'll try and beat him too. I did like Elysian Chief. I like what I saw last time out. I think he's come along the right way. He trounced the field last time out. He was never in doubt. And Muzieni's on record as having said he really likes him. Corey Lensley rates him very highly, and so do the connections here. So I think for me, Elysian Chief is the horse to beat. I do prefer him to Godswood, the fact that he's receiving 3.5 kilos, but I, like you, do put Godswood into the race. And the other one I obviously want to mention is the 7 Look to the Sky, Neil. He comes in with absolutely no weight. I think you have to include this. He's 9 to 1. I'm not so sure he can overturn the form, but if you look at weight turnarounds, he's got them stone cold. I mean, he comes in with just 49 kilos. He could be the value horse in the race. Look to the Sky at 9 to 1.
Yeah, I liked a couple of Clinton Binder's outsiders today. We mentioned them earlier on. The yard hasn't been at its best, but if they do bounce back, I think they might have some runners, and it could be that kind of card. You know, they're not big fields. And Clinton's horses are probably overdue to turn the corner. So, yeah, I liked a couple of their outsiders today, including this one, number 7, Look to the Sky.
Yeah, I think if he returns back to his best form, well, Uncle Les will be looking forward to Clinton Binder's horses because, I mean, he always has a few pound on them and hopes for the best, yeah. So I made it, for me, Elysian Chief, Godswood, Look to the Sky for bigger perms, and obviously the favourite Country Squire, not to be left out of calculations and bigger perms. Okay, let's move on to the 7th race, but a nice competitive race, that one. 7th race is a graduation plate over 1,100 meters. Scratches number 5, Hey Gorgeous, Neil, who you deserve a lot of credit for last time out. You tipped her coming off a very lengthy rest, and she won. She beat the field by 4 lengths, and she went to 14 to 1. So she's not running today. But here, Portico is 7 to 10. Now, if you strictly go on ratings, Portico's got the field beat. 7 to 10 Portico. Dock of the Bay, the 2-year-old, is at 3 to 1. And then you've got Captain Morisco at 4 to 1. Lucy in the Sky at 11 to 2. Love Lies at 16 to 1. The outsider, Miss Costa Rica at 66 to 1. Now, Portico, is it a 7 to 10 chance?
No, I'm shocked, actually. It's that short. I mean, he is my first choice, but 7 to 10 is very short. I mean, he's got to give 6 kilograms to the 2-year-old, Dock of the Bay, who's a Rafif and won nicely on debut. You would think there's more improvement to come from him. So Yeah, I was surprised. If I had priced up this race, I would have had Portugal something like 14-10 and Dock of the Bay 5-2. So to see that much of a discrepancy surprises me. But I have to say that Portugal remains my first choice. But it wasn't a confident choice, bearing in mind that the 6 kilograms he's got to give. The other horses, again, Captain Morisco probably hasn't been at his best in recent starts, which is evidence from the fact that he was beaten over 6 lengths by Al Sakit at his penultimate start. But 2 runs prior to that, he'd run Al Sakit at level weights to 1 length. Now, I think that that's good form, and so perhaps is some of the earlier form, but his last 2 starts probably not at his best. But I think you've got to respect him. So I thought so what I might do again here in the jackpot is use the scratching to my benefit. I might go 1, 4, 5, and 6. So if Portugal does win, I double up. But I don't want to leave the 2-year-old running loose. Or for that matter, Captain Morisco, who are 55.5, I think will be competitive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you look right at the top, Captain Morisco ran Copper Mountain to a neck at levels, Neil. Not that it was Copper Mountain's best trip at that stage. Well, at that stage, he was just coming through the ranks. But you know what Copper Mountain has done. I'm definitely more on Captain Morisco at 4-1 than I'd be on Portico at 7-10, Neil. I think the value is definitely for me on Captain Morisco. And I agree with you. If you look at the 2 Al Sakit runs, you've got to say which one is more like the Captain Morisco we know. And I think it's the former rather than the latter. The problem is, when I see Bled suspended 5 runs back, it worries me that it is a bleeder, and hence had to be suspended from December last year to February this year. But his comeback run was good. I'm just expecting more from Captain Morisco than his last couple of outings. And I think for me, he is a danger. The 2-year-old, as you mentioned, Dock of the Bay, has to be respected. Sean Terry keeps them cotton wool. They come back fit and well. Even though it's been rested for over 5 months, he did win his debut, so he could be absolutely anything, Dock of the Bay. He's a half-brother to Golden Tract and Milan's Princess. And as we say, the Rafifs are precocious, so I'm expecting Dock of the Bay to be right there. So I put all 3 in, Neil, into my bets over here. I'm not convinced that Portugal is the right horse there. Last race of the day, 4:45 is a maiden plate fillies and mares to close up the meeting. It's 1,400 meters up the straight. No blinkers for number 2, Dancing Arabian, who we've been for a few times. And number 3, Kissed by Fire, races with a compression mask. Again, very little to choose. 12-10 is Lady of the Flame. 13-10, McKenna Sky. And then 6-1 about this horse, Orange Justice, who hasn't run since the beginning of January. 6.5-1, Kissed by Fire. And then 11-1, Dancing Arabian. That's the betting here. How do you see the last going?
So I like McKenna Sky, and you'll remind us how she's related, because people will know the mother, right?
Yeah, she's of course related to MK's Pride.
Correct. I think she will definitely improve here to be a real danger to her opposition. The problem with Lady of the Flame is this, and I'm reading from the computer form: respiratory noise, restless respiratory noise, respiratory noise, blowing, respiratory noise, respiratory noise, respiratory noise. I mean, that's a problem, because she is going to make a respiratory noise that you can take 1 to 10 about. And you know, clearly, I mean, she's capable with those respiratory noises, but it's obviously not helping her. So I'm going to side with the 7, McKenna Sky here, Nico. Yeah, not much else. I thought the Kiss by Fire was interesting because David Nevenhuizen only ever seems to run her in work riders races. So she's had a lot of work riders that have ridden her. And Calvin Habib rides today. She might run into the money. But yeah, for me, McKenna Sky.
I'm in full agreement, Neil. I looked at the 2 of them. I said, for me, McKenna Sky, the way she's bred, a useful enough debut, and I think she'll do well, being a daughter of Active War, who've done really well. Lady of the Flame worried me with those breathing noises again. The interesting horse that I think could improve, Neil, is the 8, Prettier in Pink. I think she could show improvement here, and I think she's a big price at 16-1. I'm not saying she can win it, but I'd include that in your bets in the last race of the day. But I'm very much with you on McKenna Sky, Neil. That is definitely my choice as well. To wrap
Nico, just help me out a little bit. I'm not familiar with BB Reuters. BB Reuters, right?
So that's Billy Reuters. Billy Reuters was the assistant to Chris Erasmus for many years. Billy, I don't know if you know Billy, that used to be interviewed when Chris Erasmus used to have a winner. He was with Chris Erasmus for many years. Chris Erasmus then went to KwaZulu-Natal, took some horses down there, and I think I stand to be corrected, but I think he's turned it up, Chris. I don't think he's training anymore because I see Ivan van Wyk has got a lot of his horses down in KwaZulu-Natal. So this was his former assistant for many, many years, and he's taken over his old string and was looking for patrons. I saw in the Sporting Post the other day. There was a feature on him.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen, I think Chris has taken all the horses. I mean, he hasn't left him with much at all.
Yeah, so that is Billy Reuters, and that is Lesedi, who he's got from Michael Machlakola. Right, okay, so that's where we'll end it off. Neil, thanks very much for your selections. We'll see you again on Saturday morning for our tipping at Turfington. As I say, it is another card that there are not many runners, Neil. And there's also an added meeting in Cape Town on Saturday, just to mention that. It wasn't on the original program, but there is a meeting in Cape Town. And then we'll be chatting to Nino Podesta about racing in Gqeberha on Friday. Neil, take it easy. We'll no doubt chat later. We're not going to do a soccershop.bet price booster today, but we're looking forward to doing one on Saturday. I don't think it's the right card today to do one, so we're looking forward to doing one on Saturday. Thanks for your time, Neil, and all the best until we see you on Saturday.
Thanks, Nico.